Welcome to Talks with Tracy, with certified hypnotherapist, life coach, and licensed mental health professional, Tracy Claremont. Tracy will share her healing journey and explore the many meaningful alternative healing methods in our world today that will support you in doing your own deepest emotional healing. So please welcome the host of Talks with Tracy, Tracy Claremont. Let the suffering end and the healing begin.
Hello and welcome to Talks with Tracy. I am your host, Tracy Claremont, coming to you live on the Bold Brave Television Network. Thank you all for joining me today, and thank you as always to Bold Brave Television Network for having me. So here on Talks with Tracy, I like to talk about emotional healing and putting it into suffering. And we've had such amazing guests who've shared their stories, and I've done a considerable amount of deep diving into my emotional experience for the sake of healing, and I've talked about that on this show. So, but even having done a considerable amount of my own healing, life is not without challenges, right? We still have ongoing challenges in our lifetimes. Now, I admit I'm better able to manage those challenges as they occur, but there's still ongoing challenges in life. So, I have to admit the last few days I've been in a little bit of a funk, a little bit of negative emotion. And in thinking about this show today, thinking about what should I talk about today on this show, it kind of caused me to have an interruption in my creativity. When we are in negative emotion, it creates a really low vibration, and creativity comes in a higher vibration. So when I'm in a funk, I have a little bit of trouble like figuring out what to talk about and be creative and whatnot. So when that happens, I know that it's time to go inward and really look internally, ask some questions internally, receive some guidance from my higher self, from my angels, from my guides about what I'm meant to talk about. So I did that. I focused internally, and in the process of doing that, I received a message. It's kind of hard to describe how I receive messages from the other side, but it's best for me to describe it as like a little raindrop of knowing. It just kind of plops into my mind. It's a thought, but it doesn't feel like my own thought. It's much different. So anyway, that happened, and it said, talk to Lisa Adams on your show. It's pretty specific when that happens. And I'm like, oh, good. I can talk to Lisa Adams, psychic medium, on my show. She's one of my favorite people to talk about. I love talking. She's one of my favorite people to talk to. I love talking to her and receiving guidance from her. So then I was like, okay, what am I supposed to talk to Lisa about? Like, I had to, again, search kind of internally and wait for an answer. This requires me to just remain calm and have faith in knowing that it'll come to me. And it did. And the message that I received was talk about what I'm experiencing. So then I was like, oh, okay, what am I experiencing, right? How do I put words to what I'm experiencing? So I really had to look at my own emotional state, what had been happening lately, and self-reflect and figure out, like, what is it that I'm going through? And after considerable self-reflection and looking at that, I came to understand that I had kind of fallen off the wagon a little bit and fallen into some very human behaviors of trying to control my life and what was happening. So things that were uncomfortable for me happening, I was wanting to change it, control it. Things happening with other people in my life, wanting to control their situation even. And I came to realize that wanting to control was causing me a lot of negative emotion, and I was using a lot of energy towards that when I have full knowing that I have no control over anything. In fact, control used to be a big issue for me, where I, even from the time I was very young, I would try to control my environment, try to control the universe, even. Control. I would do compulsive behaviors so that bad things wouldn't happen. These were all related to control with an underlying energy of emotion of fear. So I kind of slipped back into some of those things, and it was causing me some blockages, and it was causing me some suffering. So once I figured that out, then, I realized I am trying really hard to live in a way of soul consciousness, right? I do trust the universe. I do trust that things will unfold in the way they're meant to unfold. And everything happens for a reason, and everything will work its way out in its own time, divine timing. I do believe all of that. However, in moments of struggle, I tend to kind of slip off and fall into these behaviors and impulses to control things. So I got a hold of Lisa and I asked her to kind of help me talk all this through and figure out why we do this. I assume that other people do this as well if I'm doing it, and we're all human. So I got a hold of Lisa, and she was kind enough to join me today to talk about all this and do some sorting out and give me a little bit of a reboot, like a reboot, to recharge my soul consciousness and get me back on track. I fell off the path a little bit, and I'm just asking her to kind of get me back on that path, help me to get back there. So she is joining us today. Thank you so much. And please join me in welcoming the amazing and beautiful Lisa Adams, psychic medium. Good morning,
Hi,
Lisa.
Tracy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm very
Good.
well.
Good, good. So I so appreciate you joining me again today. I love having you on, and I love visiting with you. And you're always so helpful to me in kind of getting me back on track. I love the guidance that you provide to me. And, and thinking about this issue of control, would you agree that it's a very human impulse?
Yeah, it is a human impulse, and it's also a learned impulse. When you grow up in a dysfunctional family, just for example, say there's one child being uh, severely disciplined in the family, and the other children then try to control that child's behavior because they don't want to watch them get in trouble because they
Mm,
have nothing, they can't do anything about it. It makes them feel um, insecure and sad and no control. So therefore they try to control. It starts when you're a kid. They try to
mm,
control it, not because they want to help you, but because they don't like the way they feel. So
yeah.
yeah, and it's learned. It's a survival behavior.
Okay.
Well, not always, but a good part of
Yeah.
the time can be a survival behavior because
Right,
we want
right.
things to turn out the way we want them to turn out, so we feel good, so we don't have to experience any discomfort or pain. So
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah,
and
and
we
when you talk about it coming in childhood, um, I mentioned that I have historically had some really compulsive kind of behaviors, and as I grew older, I realized that these compulsive behaviors, like counting in my head and doing different things, that having to check the stove 3 times before I can get out of the door, different behaviors, lots of counting in my head, lots of stepping a certain way, these different things. Um, as I grew into my adulthood, I'm like, oh wow, this is so silly. I'm trying to control the universe, and I'd have that conscious awareness of what I was trying to do and how silly it was in my mind to be doing that, but I'd still do it. And when I was a child, I would have these behaviors of, I had a strict bedtime routine that my beautiful mom, adhered to, where I had to get into bed a certain way. Like I made my bed really tight, and then I'd wiggle into it, and I have the sheets a certain way, and up to my neck, and a whole ritual around that. And it was my effort to control control my life. And kids will do things to control their lives when they feel a sense of fear. Now, I didn't know where that
Mhm.
sense of fear was coming from back then, but I do now. But those behaviors are pretty common.
Yeah, they are. The counting, or some of that. It's funny because I just was reading up on neurodivergent behavior,
Mm.
and people that have experienced some PTSD because of childhood issues that they were growing up in.
Mm-hmm.
They'll say, okay, I have an appointment at 12 noon. That means I have to be in the shower by 10:30. That means I have to have my makeup on by this time. That means I have to leave by 11:30. And they'll go all the way back to when they wake up. I have to wake up at this time and have breakfast at this time. It's a neurodivergent, ADHD people have it, and people that have PTSD have it. And
Mm.
people that have grown up in an abusive, extremely dysfunctional environment, most of them do have some form of PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
and that's also where a lot of, counting the steps when you walk, or
Mm-hmm.
adding up the numbers on a license plate when you're driving, which is what I do a lot. And
Oh,
so
okay. So
it's,
so you're saying
it,
that you have some of those kind of behaviors as well?
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Boatload. But see, the thing is when you have these behaviors, if you recognize them and acknowledge them, which is, they say is half the battle, but when you recognize them and you realize that they're affecting you, you want to make it better. You want to deal with it. Well, at
Mm-hmm.
least I do. I want to deal with
Mm-hmm.
it so I can, not be a weirdo, not be not be um ostracized or whatever else you think is going to happen. I've come a long way in
Uh-huh.
my own healing. Uh,
Mm.
I've been at this for almost 27 years, which is a
Mm.
long time. So,
When
and I
you say
think
at this, you mean you're healing?
oh yes, yes,
Okay.
because you have to recognize where. Well, I had two failed marriages and
Mm-hmm.
one live-in relationship, and they all blew up in my face,
Mm.
and they weren't really anything. I was trying to control everything. And when those things blew up, when my last
Mm.
marriage blew up in my face, was when I realized I need to do something, not so I could stay in a relationship, but I needed to do something for my own well being, my own mental health. So, working on my own self care, self love, and everything that's concerned with, because for the longest time I didn't even take care of myself. And
Mm.
when you're not even taking care of your physical body, that
Mm-hmm.
is a self-worth or a deserving. I'm not good enough, so I'm unworthy, so I'm not going to take care of my physical body. And
Mm-hmm.
or I don't deserve this, so I'm going to sabotage my relationships. And we don't consciously know that we have these behaviors or attitude, and still until someone brings it up to us in our face.
Mm-hmm.
And usually we don't like when that happens, and we blow our life up and put ourselves in a position where we are forced to deal with it. And
Mm.
blowing our life up can be an illness, it can be injuries or several injuries, it could be divorce, it could be estrangement from all kinds of, we blow ourselves up until we force ourselves to look at what we need to look at in order to move forward with our life and feel better and be better, just better.
Right. Absolutely. And that's when we come to a crossroads where we have to make a decision, right? We can either continue on
Mm-hmm.
with what's the way it's happening, or we can fearlessly move in the other direction and do our healing, our learning, do that deep dive into our own emotional experience and make choices about change. So, that's, I completely agree. And we've talked about that on this show. I'd love to talk more about that though. So hold that thought. It's actually time to break to a commercial already. So you're watching Talks with Tracy on Bold Brave Television Network. Please join us after the break.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBN Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back to Talks with Tracy, with me, Tracy Claremont, coming to you live on the Bold Brave Television Network. Thank you so much for joining us once again. I am visiting with the amazing and beautiful Lisa Adams, psychic medium. Today we're talking about this issue of control. And Lisa, I think, or the need to have control. And I think it's interesting that even people who have a strong foundation in soul consciousness and knowing the ways of the universe and divine timing, like I feel like you and I have. I think it's so interesting that you and I even slip into, not that we're better than anybody else, I'm not saying that, because we are totally human and we're all equal, but we have those moments where all of a sudden we're trying to control, and we're trying to we're engaging in some behaviors that don't serve us. The last few days with my funk I've been in, I really did realize that I really was trying to kind of interfere with the flow of the universe and with the things that were unfolding, and I don't have any kind of power to do that. So even with that knowing, I was still doing it. And I think that must come from a place of fear. Do you
Mm-hmm.
agree?
Yeah, it all
Okay.
comes from a place of fear, because
Uh-huh.
we fear the 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 discomfort or the pain. We don't want to experience that
Mm,
because we've already been through that and we don't want to. A lot of times when things come up, it means we need to, look at it and deal with it. And then when things come up and we feel that we have dealt with it, sometimes it's going to rear its ugly head
mm,
because it'll be the last time we need to deal with it. Because when
mm,
we deal with pain and issues and, uh, you know, repeat behaviors,
mhm,
when we don't deal with that, it's because we're unsure of the outcome and we don't. But if we don't deal with it, we know what that feels like. We know how to uh, manage within those
mm,
parameters that we put up for ourselves.
mhm. It's
So
familiar to us.
yes, it's familiar to us. And we always, even though we're uncomfortable in the situation, we're used to it, so we get comfortable with it. We're uncomfortable, but it's what we know, so we remain there.
Mhm. Right, and
And
repeat patterns.
right, and then until we decide, we can blow up our own life. We can go so far down that we blow up our own life because we don't want to deal with it. We choose not to look at it. And finally, our higher self will put ourselves in a situation that's almost lighting a keg of dynamite under our butt. We're going to blow our
Mm,
life up in order to deal with it. And a
mhm,
lot of people blow their life up and they don't deal with it. Things will get
mm.
back together. Okay, I'm going to give you an example because
Okay.
this is something that I've been learning for a long time. When
Mhm,
in 2008, Pluto entered Capricorn and all the finances of the whole country went topsy-turvy. I lost my retirement. I lost over $300,000 in that debacle. And
mm,
I was left devastated. I mean, I
mm,
was financially devastated. And through that, I learned about certain thoughts and behaviors that I had around money. And I am
mm,
just now coming out of it. So 15 years I've been
mm,
dealing with, dealing, not dealing, dealing, not dealing. So
mhm,
I believe I'm finally dealt with it enough that I'm at the end of it. But it took a long time, and there was a lot of uh, feelings of unworthiness,
mm,
and I don't deserve this. I didn't work hard enough. I didn't work enough. I worked too much. And
mm,
I always worked, but apparently I wasn't doing it well enough to replace that $300,000.
mm.
So it was a lot for me to deal with. Talk about blowing up your life. I mean,
Wow.
it
Yes.
really did.
Wow.
So
And you're talking about when you're talking about undeserving, unworthy, not enough stuff, you're talking about core beliefs that existed within yourself that were
yes,
based
yes.
on past experiences.
And what I believed also was that I needed to do more. I needed to do less. I needed to do. That's what I was thinking. I have to, what do I do? How do I do? Instead of just be and
Mm,
know that the universe is going to take care of me. And the universe has. And yes, we all need to work.
mhm,
Even in the Bible, Jesus said, if a man does not work, he shall not eat. But that
mm,
does not mean we have to have a job.
mm,
And it's an individual belief system. So, for example, if your mother had issues around money, she may have put those beliefs in you. In fact, there's a song by Pink Floyd about that. Mother's going to put all her fears into you. And that's kind of what happens, even if you think you're growing up in a really functional home. The fears of the parents are always put back onto the children, always, even if it's good intentioned.
Correct.
So, yeah. So, anyways, I've been doing a lot. I had been doing a lot of manifesting and dealing with self-worth issues. Do I deserve this? Do I deserve that? The big thing was taking care of my physical health. And yeah, that was a big thing. And then again, you blow your life up, and I did it with my physical health in order to look at certain things that I am worthwhile, I am worthy and deserving of having good health and taking care of myself.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. I like what you're saying about you were saying a couple minutes ago about doing, 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 and I think that's part of what I fall into sometimes too. But um, doing, doing, doing in a less than helpful way, like doing everything myself and being the fixer, and even like. Even right down to protecting my kids' emotional experience, right, where I want
mhm,
to protect them from any kind of hurt or pain, and I have to remember that they're growing and learning, and this is their learning, and I can't protect them from everything, so I can't control their experience the way I want to. I mean, my intention is good, but
mhm.
it's misguided. My intention is to protect them, and it's hard for me to see them in emotional pain. But then I also know that that's part of learning. So my intention is good, but my effort is misguided, and that I'm trying to control things that I'm not meant to control. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, and it is true because our children, our families, they chose to be here. Their soul chose to be here at this time and to have these experiences, good, bad, indifferent, and horrible.
Mm,
Uh, a lot of it is a karmic debt, and I don't even like to say the word debt, but unfinished business from a past lifetime. Um,
okay.
do you have to go to commercial?
Nope.
Oh,
We're good.
okay.
We have
I
a couple
thought
more minutes.
okay. Um,
Oh,
the we all choose to be here, and we forget that we have chosen our parents. We forget that we don't even know until someone says you chose this. And most of us go, no, sir, I would never choose this. My life was so horrific. I would never choose this. And this is why I like astrology, because I can go back in the astrology and say, this is a soul lesson for you. You most certainly chose this. This
mm,
is, in fact, I have one friend that I've known her for 40 something years. And all this time, I never did her astrology. And I did her astrology, and I said, this is why you're here. This is what you need to deal with, A, B, and C. And she has told me that since she's had that astrology reading, she has just been, it was like a light was turned on. She understood herself more. And that's why I'm such a big fan of astrology, because it does work and
mm,
it's very useful. I think I may have gotten a
absolutely.
little off track and forgot where I was going with this. I do that often. So,
No problem.
um, but what was the
I was just
question?
talking about, oh, I was just talking about, like using an example of my parenting about wanting to
Hmm.
control situations so that my kids won't experience emotional pain, or, because I hurt when they hurt, and I want their
Mm-hmm.
I want their child to be happy and full of joyful moments. But they're living and they're learning beings, and
Mm-hmm.
they came here to do learning as well. And I think a lot of my wanting to control things absolutely is based in fear of that discomfort and wanting to save them from having to live in their own discomfort. And when you're
Well,
raising teenagers in particular, there's a whole lot of discomfort that happens.
I know, because teenagers are just dumb. They just don't
Oh,
think.
I would agree
No,
they're
they don't think of
impulsive, and
yeah, they're
they're
impulsive. It's
they're
not they're dumb as, intellectually, but they don't have the life experience under their belt.
Mhm.
And
And they're
the
little.
older a teenager gets, the stupider the parent gets. That's, they
Oh,
know more
absolutely.
than, yeah, they know more than we do. And then one
So
day they realize they don't.
we are, yes, absolutely. We are going to have to break for a commercial, but I do want to say
Okay.
before we break, one of my teenagers' favorite things when I say, maybe you should do this, or when I offer a suggestion or something like that, she has this. They kind of like fall into these little sayings that they like to do, and it'll last for a while, and then a new saying will come on. But she'll always look at me and say, probably not. I'm going to do my own thing. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. But
Yeah,
that's a great example of teenage thinking. So we're going to break for a commercial real quick, and when we come back, we'll continue our
sure.
talk about this. You're watching Talks with Tracy on Bold Brave Television Network. Please join us after the break.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back to Talks with Tracy, with me, Tracy Claremont, live on Bold Brave Television Network. I am talking to the amazing Lisa Adams, psychic medium today, and she's helping me kind of get myself back on track and kind of sort out these moments, these very human moments that kind of irritate me a little bit, where I fall off track and I fall into patterns of behavior of trying to control things that I have no control over, and the negative emotion it creates in me. It really does bring me to a place of sadness and anger and a lot of negative emotions. So Lisa's giving me a reboot today, and I appreciate it so much. We've been talking about how this happens. It just seems kind of crazy when I think, why am I forgetting to do the things that serve me so much, that I love to do so much, like like meditating or praying, or, you know, I don't know why I forget to talk to a higher power, why I forget to pray. I'll literally forget. And I think it's because I get caught up in the day to day living, especially when things are a challenge to me. And I start focusing on the challenge, the challenge, the challenge. And it's easy to slip into almost like a survival mode or something, and lose track of those things, the self-care, like you were talking about earlier, and the things that really fill me up and keep me strong. So I think that's common for lots of people, don't you think?
It is common, and I do want to say one thing. You have mentioned a couple of times about negative emotions. Uh,
Mm,
in my ever so humble opinion, I do not believe that any emotion is negative. I believe
mm,
that we can have an emotion and it can be uncomfortable, like sadness or anger,
mm,
we or grief or whatever, and we can act irrationally or not
mm.
in a good way due to those emotions, or we can even speak
Right.
things. And a lot of people do
Yeah.
not realize how powerful our words are.
Mm.
So I don't believe any emotion is negative. There, it's
Right, and I
all the
appreciate that. I like
it's
your
it.
I like your clarification about uncomfortable. I think
Mm-hmm,
as a mental health professional, there's a wording like that you learn. Negative, positive emotions,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
but really they're just emotions. Uh, I appreciate you pointing that out, because it's not meant to like say better or worse, but really emotions that are of a different vibration, right? Lower and higher
mm-hmm,
vibrational
mm-hmm,
energies and emotion.
mm-hmm. And well, sometimes when we're cracked open and we're raw
Mm,
and we're dealing with
mhm,
stuff like, oh my God, why is this happening to me? What did I do? Why did I
mhm,
break my leg? Why did I make myself have a heart attack or whatever? People don't believe that they do that themselves, but they really are, due to
mhm,
poor self-care. And self-care also to include meditation and some sort of physical exercise or prayer
mhm,
or whatever your belief system is. Those are
mhm,
what gets us through the dark times. And there's quite a few people right now that are going through what's I don't like to call it, everybody calls it the dark night of the soul. And those are
mhm,
some cracked wide open, you've blown your life up. Now where do I go and what do I do? And then people, instead of looking at this as a clean, fresh slate, a new beginning, they're still caught up and wrapped up in the pain and discomfort of being ousted from their comfort zone. Does that make
mm.
sense?
Yeah, because
So,
it's very scary to be ousted from what you know, whether what you know and what you're living in feels good or serves you. It's still very frightening to be ousted from that, and it takes some fearlessness to move through that.
yeah, because it's what you know and it's what you're familiar with
Mhm,
and it's what you need to actually step away from because it has caused you high blood pressure or a stroke or heart attack or falling down a flight of stairs and breaking your leg. There's a lot of, when we have stuff like that, we need to take a look at what the universe, well, actually what we are trying to tell ourselves, because it's higher consciousness, it's our soul telling us to
mhm,
snap out of it, or something's going to come along and blow our life up to where we're forced to do it. And we all
mhm.
have
So
those experiences.
an example of that for me would be that moment where my life was blown up, and in the midst of um, being in the midst of all that and making those changes, that is when I developed, and this is later in my life, I was in my late 40s. That's when I developed type 1 diabetes. That was
Oh.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I developed type 1 even, not even type 2, and I wasn't even pre-diabetic before that. So that was like my soul saying, something, you have to do self-care. Something has to change. And that was a result of my blown up life, and kind of like an extended, it was over a long length of time that my life was in turmoil.
Mm-hmm. There's a book by Louise Hay called "You
Mm-hmm.
Can Heal Your Body," and
Mm-hmm.
she gives the emotional reasons behind what she feels each disease is.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of her books, I think it's her book, "You Can Heal Your Life." That's the one I tell all my clients to get. There's a part
Mm-hmm.
in there where she's teaching a class on manifesting and getting what you deserve and blah, blah, blah. And she gives the example of one kid comes into the classroom and says, "Yay, I manifested $500." Very next day, he broke his leg and needed that $500 for the copay. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a belief system there. Either he believed he didn't deserve it, or he just accidentally had the accident and broke his leg, and the universe provided the $500 to pay for his
Mm-hmm.
copay. So it, it's we always have what we need. It's just, what are we attracting, so that we realize that we have what we need? Are we attracting something
Mm-hmm.
because it's good for us and we're going to find joy and happiness in it, which a lot of us do? Or are we attracting something thinking it's going to be one thing and it ends up being another? And all that has to do with how much we have done our own self-reflection, our own healing, our own meditations, our own whatever it is we use to get us through the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, it's interesting to me that I tend to forget what gets me through the day when I'm struggling, when I'm facing challenges. Does that make
Well,
sense?
yes, because it happens to the most of us. We're
Huh.
going along and we're going, okay, everything's super cool and groovy, and then it's not. And then we tend to focus on what's not happening or what is happening that we don't want to happen. And instead
Mm-hmm.
of going, okay, and a lot of people get really angry at this, there's a reason for everything kind of stuff, which is true. But people don't like to hear that because they can't see the reason. They don't understand the reason. And really, if they just look in the mirror, the reason is all them. Because we attract to us,
Um,
we draw to us what we need to experience. It's all our higher mind. God isn't doing it to us. Nobody's doing it to us. We are
mm-hmm.
doing it our own self. We blow up our own lives in order to learn and change a behavior that needs to
Right,
be
right,
changed, or learn something
right,
about ourselves that we need to learn, like, I'm worthy, or I'm
right,
not
right. So
stupid. Yeah.
I have a question from somebody who's watching that they're asking if, like, how do you move forward when you're most familiar with trauma and chaos? And it's kind of related to what you're saying.
If this person were my client, I would most specifically tell them to get the "You Can Heal Your Life" book by Louise Hay
Mm,
and start there. The thing
mhm,
is the most important thing is, this person asked, where do I go from here? How do I move
mhm,
forward? And moving
mhm,
forward can be as simple as learning meditation. It could be going to an exercise class or a gym. It can be getting a book and learning about yourself. It can be having your astrology chart done. It could be having a reading by someone. But a lot of people, especially in relationships, because people for some reason believe that romantic relationships are till death us do part, and they're not. Everybody comes into our life, I'm sure you've heard this, for a reason or a season. And that season could be 50 years. That season could be an hour and a half. It just depends. So it's, and also the universe will bring to you, because if this person asked you through the show, that person, that heart cry has gone out to the universe, and they're looking for something. So the universe will in turn, because the universe will in turn bring them what they need, whether it's a book or a song on the radio or bumping into a person they haven't seen in 5 years. And that person, there's nothing wrong with this person. There's everything right with this person, especially since they
Beautiful.
asked, how do I move forward? What do I do to heal me? Because I have to take care of me first and my demons, or whatever you want to call them. And then I'll be able to move forward and be able to create the life that you desire. However, I'm going to tell you, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Like I said, I've been doing it for 24 years myself. And
Yeah, yeah,
it's
and that's where you
hard.
get to that faith over fear, right? Being
Yeah,
fearless,
because
doing
a
the
lot
work.
of it, because it's repetition, you're automatically going to go to faith over the fear. Okay, I'm going to tell you.
All right, can I interrupt you just for one moment?
Sure, sure.
Can you hold that thought? Because I'm getting a
Oh,
message from
yes. Yes, I
Caleb
can.
that we have
Yeah.
to break for a commercial. So we will start right there when we're back after the break. So
Okay.
you're watching Talks with Tracy on Bold Brave
Hmm.
Television. Please join us after the break.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant. Like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back to Talks with Tracy with me, Tracy Claremont, coming to you live on the Bold Brave Television Network. Now, right before the break, I was talking to Lisa Adams, psychic medium. She's been sharing stories and her insights, and I kind of interrupted her right before she was going to tell a little story, give an example. So I want to jump right back into that, Lisa, if you could pick up where you left off in the last segment.
Sure. About 2 years ago, in fact, it's 2 years ago this month, March, my grandson ran out in front of a car that was going 50 miles an hour.
Oh
And he was with his sister, who was 13, and my daughter would let them walk down to the corner, cross the busy street to go to the little 7-Eleven there by their house. Well, he decided one day he didn't want to walk with his sister, and he darted out in front of a car, and he was hit. Now, the man who was driving the car said he heard something tell him to slow down. And he did slow down. He took his foot off the gas and had just started applying the brake when my grandson Cameron ran out in front of him. He died twice at the scene. And he was life flighted to Hershey Medical Center. And when they got him to Hershey Medical Center, they took him into surgery because his insides were kind of torn apart. And they told my daughter that he had a 5%, less than 5% chance to survive the night. If he survived the night, then they didn't know what kind of deficits he would have if he survived. So first thing I did was call my family. It always makes me get emotional. I called my family.
Absolutely.
And then I called all the people I know that are psychic mediums and healers and energy healers and tarot cards and anybody I knew. And we needed to focus on that. Now, the thing with that, most people will say, we want him healed, we want him back, we want him whole, which is what any parent, any grandparent would want. However, in this type of community, we know that there was a reason for this, even as horrific as it was. And he was in the hospital. It was also during COVID, the end of COVID. So I couldn't even go back there to Pennsylvania and offer my support. Over the course of 30 days, he kept showing improvement. This boy, he'll be 10 this year, has no deficits. Zero. He's perfectly healthy. The only thing he has is a scar from stem to stern where they repaired his intestines because they had burst when he was hit by the car. Now, what was the reason for that? We don't know. How can there be a reason for a little, other than for him to realize you don't run in front of a car? But there is a reason for it. Now, there's a couple of things that could be. It's to develop his own spiritual gifts. It's because he has a purpose for later on in life. Or it could just be that it just wasn't his time to go. There's a reason for everything, even if we don't see it. And even when things don't turn out the way we wanted to, because, there's not much hope, 5% chance of life. That's almost zero hope. That's almost prepare yourself. But he pulled through because of the collective of everybody focusing on that. Now, even if he had nobody focusing on that he would still have lived if it's not his time. And I lost my train of thought. I do that all the time now.
No, I appreciate what you're saying, because what I was asking for with this show was a reboot, a reminder, getting, helping me get back on my path, and
Yeah.
firm in my knowing. I am firm in my knowing that everything happens for a reason and its own divine
Mm-hmm.
timing, and that's a beautiful example of that. So, um, I do want to ask you before we have to go, because we're almost out of time. How can people get a hold of you so that they can receive their own
Oh,
personal guidance from you? You're so helpful to me, and I so appreciate you. I'd love for
oh,
others
thank
to do
you.
that as well.
Lisa Adams 444 at gmail.com. And if they email me, then I'll give my phone number out and we'll schedule something.
Beautiful. I really hope everybody out there takes advantage of Lisa's services, because she truly makes such a positive impact on my life. Thank you for that, Lisa. I really, really appreciate you. And I do feel like I've gotten that reboot that I needed, and I'm feeling much better. I feel my vibration raised, and able
Oh,
to move forward and whatnot. So thank you. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for
sure.
being here today. And of course, I appreciate all of you out there who view the show. Thank you so much for being here. Next week, I'm going to start a 3-part series. I'm going to be talking about narcissistic relationships, but there's so much suffering that's caused within these kind of relationships, and often we lose sight of our authentic self, which causes a lot of suffering. But I really want to do this from, yes, an educational perspective, but an empowerment perspective, right? Empowering us to be our authentic selves and break free from um, relationships that don't serve us. So that'll be the whole premise of doing a series. And I want to do some of my own out loud learning about it as well, because I have a lot of experience with that, and I've had to do a lot of growing within that. So I'm going to be asking Ash Benavides to help me with that next week. So please join me for that 3-part series. You've been watching Talks with Tracy with me, Tracy Claremont, coming to you live on Bold Brave Television Network. I'll see you next week.
This has been Talks with Tracy. Join us each week as Tracy and her guests will come together and realize that underneath it all, we are all the same and never alone. So join us each week and let Talks with Tracy be your safe place to land in your healing journey. Right here, Thursdays, 11 a.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV.